and for your time. Just to tell you that this session is being recorded, so if you know any friends that won't be able to attend today and you want to share our conversation here, please feel free to do so. Just some quick housekeeping rules. Let's keep the microphones on mute, but feel free to ask questions through the Q&A chat that we're going to be happy to take by the end. And also, 1 second. Good. And yeah, that's it. So thanks a lot again for joining. Let me first present myself. My name is Michel. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for IESE for all the candidates from Latin America. And I'm also leading, I'm a founder of a consulting firm called UNO, which focuses on impact organizations. I'll be moderating this panel today. I'm very honored and happy for that, since we're receiving a very special group of panelists here. Let me first present Funda, who is a PhD from 2012 from IESE, also who leads Norrsken Accelerator / venture capital organization from Sweden. We also have here Indira, who is an MBA from 2015, and Indira, sorry, yeah, 2015. And she's currently working with IFC in Angola. So our objective here is, as the title of the event tells, to give you an insider view of what the social impact career looks like, what an MBA should consider about the current context of this kind of career, in a way that we help you to take your decisions, since, you know, planning your career goals, it's very important for you to achieve your goals, going to IESE or not, right? So thanks a lot again for joining. Let me pass it over to Funda and Indira, but let me ask a question for them to start, right? So we all who work in this kind of social impact careers, everyone had a trigger or a moment where we actually realized that we needed to look for more purpose in the work that we do, right? Everyone had its own trigger. I want to know from you, what was your trigger? When was it? And if you can walk us through your story since then, how you got to the position, your current position, and what you currently do. Let's start maybe with Funda, who's the old school one here.
Yes, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And dear candidates, I hope the admission process goes well. It's a great school to attend indeed. So my trigger to follow an impact pathway actually did happen when I was at IESE doing my PhD. I was part of the strategy department and originally working on like very quantitative models capturing knowledge transfer in companies, enabling innovation. And during that period, after my first year, I lost my dad and started questioning my choices in life and why I was doing what I was doing. And then I realized that I had my work, you know, my quantitative models, knowledge transfer. I was reading for that for work. And then in my spare time, I was constantly reading about this new organizational form that is in the intersection of social and financial, like these impact companies. And then I decided that maybe I should just follow my passion instead of having work and then hobby on the side, which was a bit of a controversial turn. Everyone was like, what are you doing? This is not a field that is like really happening yet. And so when I twisted my path, it was like, it wasn't cool to do impact basically yet. So really like a little bit of a passion thing. And I think the passion part of it really comes from where I come from. I'm Turkish, and I don't come from a privileged family, so I know that the girl or the boy next door had a totally different path ahead of them because of lack of access to opportunities. So what keeps me awake at night is exactly that, like equal access to opportunities. So that's why I was already passionate about this topic, but I didn't find a good outlet for it. And now looking at the pandemic and like the climate crisis that is at our doorstep, we realize more and more that the disadvantaged groups are the ones that are affected the most. And that's why I'm really I wanted to devote my career to then helping build a more inclusive society where also the companies are environmentally sustainable and conscious. And I also, by the way, firmly believe that the biggest business opportunities ahead of us do lie in the solutions that are tackling the world's greatest challenges. This is not just a nice to have anymore, but this is basically where the world is going to. After IESE, I worked as a strategy consultant for a while, and then worked as an incubation program manager in an international program before I then joined Norrsken. Should I talk about that as well, or just the trigger point so far, Michel? Should I pass it on?
No. So please explain about Norrsken also.
Okay, great. In a nutshell, Norrsken is a Swedish organization founded in 2016. So we are a foundation in legal form, but a startup at heart. Our founder is one of the co-founders of Klarna. I don't know if you know about that, but currently valued at $46 billion, I think. They have taken over the fintech world. And one of the founders of Klarna started asking similar questions to himself. What am I leaving for my kids and the next generation? And quite early on in the Klarna journey, he decided to sell part of his shares and build this organization that is helping entrepreneurs that are tackling the world's greatest challenges. So he really allocated some capital and his experience as an entrepreneur to build scalable, successful companies and then channel it to impact. And what we have is this house that I'm sitting at right now. It's an entrepreneurial hub accommodating 400 entrepreneurs, all focused on impact. We have a VC fund currently at 125 million euros. We have a seed fund in Africa. We're building a growth fund in Africa, and then we have an accelerator for pre-seed companies. That is the unit that I'm currently leading. So lots of things are happening at Norrsken. We're trying to turn it into a powerhouse of initiatives to put spotlight on those that are creating impact and then enabling them through their journey.
Thank you, Funda. Sorry, I was writing IFC and Dalberg in your names. Hi, Enapha. Just to welcome Enapha, who's also joining. She's an MBA from 2019, working in Dalberg. Let's follow the order only. I'll pass by Indira, and then Enapha can answer also the same question. Please, Indira, go on.
Sure. Thank you, Michel, and thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to be here to speak to all of you, and I will reiterate what Funda said. I think IESE is a great school, and I hope that you all, in your choices, if you have the choice, choose to come to IESE. I certainly had an amazing time and have very fond memories of my time there. So a little bit about me and my trigger to go into the sort of development impact space. I think, I guess as a background, I'm from Angola. I was raised partly in Angola, partly in France, and partly in the US. And I think with many people who come from a developing country and have the chance to have access to education, to higher education, to experience what it's like to live in a developed country, to have access to help, to have access to basic services, you have a feeling or a duty, I guess, some kind of calling to work in the impact space. And I think that was my case. At first, I thought I needed to understand what is it that economies like Angola and go through, and why they are at the stage of development that they are. And so I started off by getting my first degree in economics. I got a first master's in development economics, and I started a career in the impact world. And I guess a career in the impact world is has many forms. So I started off in the academia / think tank world. I was working for a think tank in London doing research on Africa, and I guess maybe I didn't have the trigger. I always had that trigger or that calling, but I guess I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and so I have changed several times within this space. To today, hopefully, I think I found where I want to what I want. So. Or where I think makes most sense. And I think that also changed. Today I work with the private sector. So I started off with a think tank. Then I went into the bilateral and the multilateral world, but very much looking at the public space and thinking that, you know, having an impact or the development is of the responsibility of the public space. And as you mature in your career or as you get exposed to different things, I got exposed to working with the private sector, to investing in private sector that also is having an impact. And today I'm a firm believer that, you know, it's the development of a country or the ESG targets that we want to achieve, the responsibility does not lie on the public sector, and will certainly not happen if it's only the public sector that's taking care of it. And so, you know, I did various different things, and today I work for IFC, which is an international organization, the largest one doing impact investment in emerging economies. We do investment in all different sectors in projects that have an impact and that can be measured. And so it goes, you know, from an agribusiness project to a road to a hospital, a private hospital, and we also do advisory to support the clients that we invest in, either to get better at what they are doing, to expand what they're doing, and we complement the investment with the advisory. And so, yeah, I think I've spoken a little bit too much. I'll turn it over to Enapha, and I'm happy, you know, to carry on discussing this topic, which I love. Enapha, over to you.
Thank you, Indira. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to see all of you today. So I am senior consultant at Dalberg. I have joined the firm 2 years ago, just after my MBA in IESE. And how I came to Dalberg, to social impact, maybe I will have to go back much earlier. As Indira and Funda said, when we're born in a low-income country, you are really quickly sensitized to the pain of other people around you, and you see a lot of pain and distress, and you always ask yourself how you can help other people around you. Of course, you can't spend all your salary helping people around you. You have to find a sustainable way to help them and help them be also independent. So if I start with my career, my father is engineer. So when I finished secondary school, I decided to do like him. I just went and studied telecommunication engineering. And then I saw an advertisement when I was graduating from the World Bank. And I applied and I got recruited. I was recruited as the IT person. So I didn't know anything about impact. I didn't know I could do a career in impact. So I went there, I started working, and in the daily interactions with our colleagues, you learn a lot. You discover that you can do work in agriculture, you can use ICT to solve poverty, you can do a lot of things, you can interact with private sector, you can interact with with the government, and that we can actually influence the way countries are managing the sectors, the conditions they are creating for the business to flourish. And I found that really exciting. So I went to the boss and I told him, you know what? I don't like IT that much now. I would like to move to the side where people are doing great things. They are changing life. I could use my skills in IT to serve the world better. And he supported me, and I did that transition. And I was part of the practice of the World Bank that advised government on the telecommunication and IT sector. So I did that for 3 years, about 3 years. And then in my country, we elected a new president who had a lot of ambition, who brought qualified Beninese who was living outside to the government. So they set up a very small strategic team at the presidency. And one of the priority sector was digital and telecommunication. So I was part of this team. They offered me a position, and I met like very bright people. And our goal was really to drive the agenda of the president in digital. So there were other priority sectors, but our team was focused on digital. And at that moment, I got an offer from IESE. I couldn't resist. And I went to Barcelona, spent 2 wonderful years. I did an internship in a top consulting firm. And during my internship, I was like so much influenced by all my classmates who were so brilliant. I was like, maybe impact is not that good. Maybe I should go also to consulting, do private sector stuff. And when I did my internship, I was not happy. I was always asking myself, why am I running that much? Why am I putting so much effort just to make wealthy people wealthier? So I was not able to find any meaning in my work. So when I finished the internship, I spent the next month trying to find a firm that will help me do something that is quantitative and analytical enough, but also in the impact area. And that's how the career services talked about Dalberg. I applied to Dalberg twice. The second time I was recruited, and I'm currently based in the Senegal office in West Africa.
Okay, thanks, Enapha. Good, so let's follow up with a question related to that. So since the time that this trigger happened and you actually joined the sector, and let's start with Funda, who has more time in this career, how this impact world actually changed from then. And one of the things that you mentioned is how actually there is a false contradiction between impact and financial returns, right? That's actually quite the contrary. If you're solving a real societal problem, that's where actually the potential financial returns are, right? So if you can comment on that and on what we're seeing a lot in admissions at IESE also, that the millennials, the so-called millennials, they are increasingly interested in impact careers, and also as someone who's inheriting the wealth from their families, also this is impacting the investment allocation towards more meaningful investments. If you can comment on what changed, if it's still a niche or if it's actually the contrary, you have to prepare for talking about that anyways.
Loaded question. But okay, so I think like first of all, more generally, there is a very clear trend towards having impact as an integral part of your business. And if not, if you're a traditional business, really compliance to ESGs and then sustainability standards is unavoidable now. What used to be, the way we defined firm was that you're responsible for your shareholders. I mean, try to pull that off in public now, while you're like basically polluting the environment. You know, we can't now any longer say that I'm paying my taxes so I can pollute this sea. Then you get a lot of like backlash from the public. So I think like there is a general trend that I would say that has been going on, and like especially millennials, you know, Gen Zs, like they, you know, like there is a general search for meaning in what we are doing anyways. So like in order to attract top talent, like all the firms that like used to be very traditional are now looking into how they can bring more impact to what they are doing, or how at least they can be a little bit more careful with what they are doing, even if they're not full on impact. And I think like the lines are somewhat blurred. I don't think that like this will replace traditional businesses entirely. I think there is room for both. Like not everything has to have an impact as focus. What you can do, like I said, at least for starters, that you're compliant with the common sense that you're not producing negative externalities while you're operating, because otherwise you will not have the license that the society gives you to operate any longer. So that's like one side, but at the same time, like it would be ideal from my perspective that I don't have to call the companies that we invest in impact companies. I think like when that term disappears, that this becomes mainstream, that would be a win for us, basically. That's how we perceive it. And like when I look at the jobs and how they are changing, or the talent that we attract here, I mean, with Enapha, Indira and I, we have the common thread that we come from, you know, like challenging backgrounds that basically gives us the passion to it. But at the same time, I mean, now I'm surrounded by people from all walks of society, coming from any type of background, really proactively moving to impact. And these are thought leaders.
Somebody.
Okay. So like people that are proactive change agents, like they're all in the game now. I mean, the types of people that we have around us at Norrsken is really the top part of the society, trying to figure out how can we respond to the urgency that we need to feel with all the things that are happening around us, and how do we bring more resources, more talent, more capital to impact. And now when I look at the talent per se, I mean, honestly, the applications that we get for any job opportunity is just insanely high quality. I think now the top talent is also are less excited about investment banking and like traditional consulting, and are looking into channeling their energy into what is very excitingly happening. And we are supporting startups here. So this is a place where, like I said, we're hosting on average 120 companies, 120 startups in the hub here. All of them are growth-oriented startups. All of them have impact as an integral part of their business. And they come here as 2-3 people, and within months they raise capital, they bring more people to their team, and they grow out of the house. So this is now like a machine of fantastic opportunities. And this is Sweden, but I know that's like the same type of movements we see in other parts of the world as well. So lots of opportunities are out there for the millennials and Gen Zs, and also like the older generation, you know, who have now like done whatever they have been doing, and then are also looking for more meaningful opportunities. So the shift is absolutely there. Super exciting.
Absolutely good. Indira and Enapha, feel free to comment, or if not, I can go with the next question. Any comments? Okay, let's go to the next one, and I go to Enapha on this one direct. Oh, Indira, go on.
No, sorry. I was trying to unmute myself, and you know, a year of COVID has not been enough for me to learn how to unmute myself. No, I was just not to repeat what Funda said. I think I fully agree. I think the in terms of the talent pool, first of all, because we are taking this, you know, and again, I will end up repeating what Funda said. So, but you know, when we stop calling this sort of sector an impact sector, and we start looking at it as just the way business should be, just a bit more responsible, whether some will take it a step further or whether some will just do the minimum, there will be room for everyone. The types of talents that you need will change, and whereas before, you know, when I finished, when I did my bachelor's in economics and I specialized in development economics, the type of organizations that I joined were looking for my type of profile, and for people like me who, further than that, would go and do a PhD specifically on, you know, the agronomy of, you know, specific soils in X part of the world, or that, you know, would look into infrastructure that is X, you know, and so these were the types of people that would be recruited, not necessarily, so mostly academia or from an academic background, rather than from an operational or private sector background. And today, at least when I'm looking for candidates, I'm not saying that I'm completely dismissing the academic background, because I think that's still very valid, and specialization is still very valid. But, you know, to do things differently and to have different ideas, you need different people. So, you know, we will be looking for people who have worked operationally in a company, people who have worked in the banking sector, people who have worked in audits. I mean, you name it. The talent pool today is vast, and I think the only thing that at least we try to be consistent in getting is people who have the real motivation to be doing this type of work, and that's, you know, and that's all. And that motivation can come from different, you know, it can be because you're from a developing country, it could be because your calling came some different way. You know, everything is valid, but it's definitely shifting, and even the way, you know, and again, the way people see that, you know, whereas before, when I started this career and I thought, that's it, you know, I only want to be in the development space, I was one in all of my group of friends, and today when I look around, they're somehow within their organizations leading some kind of impact change, and that varies, because impact is also such a big word and can mean so many different things. But all of them have, whether it's, you know, as lawyers, they're using their skills to accelerate, to provide their services to accelerate companies, or as financiers, as you know, asset managers, they're carving out different types of assets to invest in. As leader, you know, leaders in I don't know, in agro-industrial companies, they're looking at ways of doing more sustainable. They're looking at ways of, for instance, I have a friend in an agro-industry company that has where they have. The words are missing today, but where they're looking at ways of doing generation of electricity with their extracts, and so therefore saving on the use of petroleum or for the generators. So I mean, there's different ways of leading. Of having an impact career, but of also leading changes within whatever organization or society you are in. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. To invert the order, let me point this one to Enapha. A lot of the skepticism that we see about impact comes from the fact that still a significant part of the impact claims, let's say, are actually many times impact washing, what we call impact washing, where is the kind of impact that stops in the narrative or stops in the marketing level and not actually is implemented in the operational level. From your experience, Enapha, what do you think is the main barrier for the impact to go further the narrative and actually be real in more companies?
I think the main barrier will probably be for those people who do that is to see what will be the profitability in terms of pure profitability, pure commercial profitability, which is not anymore true because in a lot of area it has been demonstrated lately that going into sustainable practices, having sustainable practices, selling sustainable products, changing processes so that they are more inclusive and more sustainable, have actually returns, financial returns for the companies. So I think it's my humble opinion that those companies which doesn't go further, who don't go further, still don't see yet the financial return of investing more. But for me, I am quite optimistic. Even if it's currently only outside, they are trying to show only on the exterior that they are doing great things. It's always a step towards a bigger change. Because I think a few years ago, they didn't even care. Now, at least they are trying to show that they care. And with much more time and a lot of pressure from the consumers and from public and regulation, I think they will slowly move towards more deeper transformations.
Thanks, Enapha. Indeed, the private sector is making a big promise that they will have to fulfill at some point, right? So this is an interesting discussion. Just to follow up on that, maybe with Funda to comment, what we actually have is a dispute between short-term returns, which are private, and long-term collective benefits, right? So the whole incentive system tends to prioritize the short-term returns because the benefits are kind of sparse, right? And it requires a certain network effect to make it happen, no? How do you see that? Do you think we need how systemic has to be the change in the incentive system for us to actually see a really sustainable, green, inclusive economy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need all and everything. Like we need the little individual efforts. We need, the types of companies that Norrsken would invest in, where impact is an integral part of the business, to the point that with X unit of output, you're actually producing Y unit of impact. But we also need those companies even doing the impact washing. That's how it all starts. I mean, they start talking about it and then they have to eventually deliver if they want to keep their license to operate from the society. So I'm quite pragmatic about like that part of the story. Like just join the camp and you'll start delivering is my point of view on that one. And like for short-term versus long-term, and then like systemic versus like individual efforts, I think like we do need those kinds of actors that can trigger the systemic level change, looking at the root causes of problems and then try to tackle those. But while we're doing that, I mean, if there is a typhoon in Haiti, there are people who are suffering from that there, then, we can't wait for the systems to change over the next 20 years. There's human suffering, livelihoods in effect, that are affected. So we just need to combine the efforts while trying to move forward in the way that we built all these systems, but then at the same time, allow for smaller scale efforts to come in, even if they are creating unintended consequences to some extent. Because if I'm solving the problem of this person in Turkey that just suffered the wildfires, then maybe I'm not creating enough incentives for the systems change to happen. Yes, and they need to go hand in hand is my perspective.
Thank you. Indira and Enapha, do you want to comment on that? Indira, are you
Yes.
trying to?
Sorry.
No, Michel.
On this one, I'll say two things. From an impact investment or organization perspective, I mean, IFC, who has been in this business for about 60 years, has managed to prove that investing in impact in all our portfolios, we have outperformed if we were investing in the regular types of equities that other organizations or other asset managers invest. So of course, this requires being a bit more patient, which comes the short versus the long term, and not all organizations are geared towards that. But we have proven that in all types of investments that we do, we outperform other organizations. So I don't think there is a trade-off anymore. I don't think there is a trade-off, and so it's really about you start somewhere, whether you start with what was the expression, the impact washing.
Impact washing.
Whether you start, but very soon, and we're seeing, because now you have for instance, for the impact investment space, there's the operational principles of impact investment, which now organizations have to become signatories, and there is audits, etc. It's not to say that everybody has to go towards that straight away, but soon enough, if you're just using it for marketing purposes, millennials will question, right? Somebody will question. And sure. Very soon you will have to move to the next stage, if you so desire, or if you accept that this is where you want to be. So I don't know. I don't think the conversation is really how do you adapt yourself and how do you move forward, and I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen in any case.
Okay, thanks. So to the next question, the three of you actually sometimes actually work in countries that are not your current base, like even within Africa. I know that the three of you actually go to different communities to ask to work. What do you think it's important to consider when it comes to engaging a different community than yours, trying to solve local problems? How do you actually avoid to impose an external view to a local problem, and that you actually develop local capabilities to be able to have a sustainable solution? Maybe inverting now. Enapha, do you want to start this one?
Sure. So in Dalberg has been growing a lot in Africa, because currently most of our staff are in Africa. Because of the nature of the business we do, but also because we really want that the document and the report and analysis we make are really tailored to the specific needs of the end customers or the end client, like not the person who is paying necessarily, but the person who will benefit from the solution or the strategy you recommend. So you see that across Africa, we have different offices, and as much as possible, we try to staff people in those regions who know those regions on the project in those regions. It happens that people from other regions also join, but as much as possible, we do that. Secondly, I think the attitude is really about being humble and listen to people, because most of the time they master much better than you what is their problem. They know what are the constraints, and they know why for now they were not able to solve it. And most of the time, by listening to them, you are able to really pinpoint what is exactly the roadblock. And now with the collective experience of the firm, you can either bring innovative solutions or maybe put them in contact with people they were not able to talk with, serve as a bridge, or maybe help them get funding by connecting them with foundations or bigger organizations that they were not able to get funding. So I think for me, the best attitude is really being humble and really listen to what is exactly the problem, because people know exactly why they have called you. I'm sure Indira and Funda have something to add to that.
Thank you. Go on, Funda, Indira.
Sure. So from an IFC perspective, I think, I mean, we look, when we're looking into investing in any of the geographies we invest, we obviously want the financial return, but more or just as equally important, we want the development impact, right? And we are firm believers, and I have to say this has not always been the case, but whereas many times in the past we would finance companies coming mostly from Europe or in, you know, developed economies to come into Africa or to Latin America or to South Asia. Today, we look into growing solutions that are developed locally. And as Enapha say, maybe it's by supporting that. If we find that there is the track record that company is already doing a good job, what do they need to scale? Maybe what they need to scale is simply investment. Maybe it's a bit of advisory to connect them to other solutions that might complement what they're already doing. Sometimes it's bringing them another investor that brings more, again, brings more know-how, but still to complement what they already are doing. So we no longer look at things like, oh, it's great, you know, Coca-Cola, which is so successful in Spain, now should come to Africa because they know better how to do, you know, the bottling and the distribution of drinks because they know they do it so well in Spain. Now they should do it, you know, in Angola or in Mozambique or wherever. So I think we've evolved from there, which is a good thing. And we bet on homegrown solutions, homegrown champions that have a track record and that just need an extra support to scale.
Thank you. Funda, do you want to comment, or let's go to the next one?
Covered.
Okay, good. So taking some questions from the chat here, a lot of people asking, you know, coming from a traditional private sector position and considering a transition to the job that the three of you do nowadays, what would be necessary for this person to prepare for in terms of skills, and also to consider in terms of pay parity compared to options in the private sector? What kind of advice could you give to someone who wants to do this transition? Funda, you can start.
Well, we love MBA students. So like what we are bringing now to the impact world is actually the business skills that this world has been in need of. So it's super relevant to do an MBA and then try to jump into this field, I would say. If you want to be on the investment side, of course, it is useful to have some sort of like either way VC or investment banking or banking, some sort of like financial experience, obviously for the VC side. But in like all the other things that we are doing, we are recruiting people from like all areas, and many of them have zero impact experience. And that is really because, again, like because we want to channel more and more of the business principles to impact, but at the same time, you know, especially in the types of organizations that I work for or that we support, these are entrepreneurial organizations. So like when I think about my years at Norrsken, I have put on so many different hats, you know, from like bringing partners to making, like doing real estate negotiations to looking at the ventilation pipes, like to that point. It can vary so much if you're at a startup, basically. So what we are looking for is talent that is both adaptable to all sorts of situations that we might find ourselves in, and that the talent is resourceful, that if you have if you're thrown into a problem, you only say, I'll figure it out. And I think having gone through a good program or a school, from the business perspective, I mean, you can bring in so much to this world. So absolutely super appreciated. I didn't have anyone from IESE in my team yet. Highly encouraged. I had an INSEAD MBA with me until she moved to another country, basically. So we love smart, ambitious people. So there will be a ton of opportunities out there if you're looking for those. And like I said, I mean, we're supporting growth-oriented startups with impact focus. Get into one of those and become an impact unicorn, then you will not have any compensation questions either. And when I say impact unicorn, I don't know if you're familiar with the term unicorn from the startups world, but companies that are valued at $1 billion is what we call unicorns. And what we are trying to create is impact unicorns. So you not only are valued at $1 billion, but you're also impacting 1 billion people's lives positively. And lots of opportunities out there. And like when I look at the compensation per se, I know that my worth would be higher if I worked at an investment bank. I mean, that's clear and loud. They need to pay me really, really well in order to keep me there. There is some sort of cut for sure. Like if you choose to work for a foundation, although we're investing as well. But at the same time, honestly, I mean, I wake up every day with excitement going to work. And that has been the case over the many, many years that I've been in the field. And like for me, this is more important that I find meaning and that I'm running to work rather than dreading Monday mornings. So I guess it's an individual decision, like how much of a sacrifice, if you will, that you're willing to make. But I think the society is also geared towards defining success in a very narrow sense. I feel that I'm much more successful this way, where I'm balancing things for myself. But of course, if you want to maximize on the profits, then this is not the path to take necessarily. Although, again, if you end up founding a startup or joining a fast-growing impact startup, then you might be richer than anyone else in this room, basically. Because we celebrate profits, because we need profits in order to scale the impact. So definitely high five on both fronts then.
Thank you. Indira?
Yeah, I mean, I second everything that Funda has just said. I think looking at your experience in the private sector is actually a plus rather than a negative. So I think everyone who has some kind of experience, even if they cannot pinpoint something that they have done that has, that's maybe because they have not been necessarily in the social impact, does not necessarily mean that it's a negative, at least from my perspective when I'm analyzing a CV. And the important is that whatever you have done, of course, there's bare minimums, for instance, and if you want an investment officer position, you need to have some financing background. It could be because you worked in a finance department in a company. It could be because you were investment banking. It could be because you were in an audit firm. It could be obviously various different things, but those are the bare minimums. But after that, it's what you have achieved in the roles where you have been, how resourceful you are in finding solutions to problems, because like Funda was saying, what you have to do every day is so different that it doesn't matter if you have a PhD in finance, you will not be able to resolve it. You read. I sometimes find my day-to-day is problem solving rather than and problem solving of things that seem so common, but most of the times block you from doing something. And then, but one way that you can at least show that you have an interest, and if you do pursue an MBA, is to use, for instance, the MBA internship to get that skill or that exposure to emerging countries if you don't have it, exposure to a startup if you don't have it, exposure to a specific sector if you think that's what use that opportunity to show your commitment towards that cause. I'm not going to say you need to go to Africa and do charity, or you need to go to Latin America and teach kids how to read. But that also is a route. I mean, that is also a very valid route, and that can show commitment if where you want to be is in the education space. By all means, use your internship to go and do a charity work in the space that you want to do. But just find ways to demonstrate somehow, because that's what the person who's looking at your CV will look at, and will try to differentiate you from the other thousands of applicants that also have investment banking plus audit firm plus whatever else, So just find a way to stand out, really. But there is no right and wrong.
Thank you.
If I can add one thing, like in my world, because we are in the entrepreneurial space as well, entrepreneurs are the rock stars of our time, especially if they are doing impact as well. And I think if you join a startup, like 3 months at a startup could actually feel like 2 years if it is actually a fast growing one. So like highly encouraged. We love either way people who have worked for like startups or started initiatives themselves, or have some entrepreneurial aspirations as well, because we then tie that to problem solving skills, resourcefulness, adaptability as well.
Thank you, Funda. Enapha?
Yes, sorry. So Dalberg is a consulting firm, right? So we love students from business school. We recruit at 2 levels. We recruit at MIM level for analysts, and we recruit at the MBA level for people who are consultants, senior consultants, and more. You can come whenever you want. You even if you had worked many years in other firms and want to join as a project manager, a senior project manager, an associate partner, I think the firm is quite open to welcome different talents, and but you just need to show some interest for development, to show that you're really interested in something that is social impact related. Like Indira explained, it could be just an internship, it could be just a side hobby, it could be anything that shows that you're just not there because you have nowhere else to go. You just need to show that there is a reason why you are there. And at analyst level, it's student with a bachelor, and MBA level, you need to have an MBA, and sometimes people who don't have an MBA have a number of years of experience to compensate. I have a lot of colleagues who come from a pure private sector background, who have joined the firm and have been very successful. And that's it. I think the most, and something that is also really important is that Dalberg has a lot of businesses. So we have a business that is focused on data analytics. So if some of you are more interested in data analytics and want to use it to solve social impact work challenges, they can just join this part. I have a colleague from Harvard Business School, MBA, who is in this part of Dalberg. You can also work in research, or you can work in the advisory like me. So it depends really on your interest. You can work in the design part. So we are really open to different kind of profiles. You just need to show that you really want to do it. And to prepare, you have the classical way to prepare for consulting firms, case studies, focused on the development work.
Thank you. So my last question for the three of you, taking a question from the chat, what was the most special or amazing projects you engaged in the last years about impact that you can give as an example, a quick one for people to get inspired? Whoever wants to start, whoever remembers first, right? Because I know that's a lot of things to think.
I can go. I think two things I'm going to talk about very quickly. One is that we're starting a new hub in Rwanda, Kigali, as a gateway to East Africa, and then we have these like funds to also support the entrepreneurs. That's over and beyond exciting. And looking for that plot and like seeing that now coming to life is just really very fulfilling. And then currently I'm in charge of this accelerator, which is essentially a pre-seed fund. And we have received 2,300 applications, like 2,300 startups applied from 120 countries. And now we have the top 20 here with us in 2 weeks, like having their investor meetings, demo day, etc. So super exciting to see these brilliant minds. I mean, lots of them are like former MBAs, that started teams and like worked at Lehman Brothers and and then now like they're starting incredibly impactful companies. So yeah, those are two, but I can like sit down and talk about 30, like if you press my button. So I'll stop here.
Thank you. Indira and Enapha.
Yes, I could talk about the project we did last year. We supported a few countries in West Africa. It was at the beginning of the COVID crisis. Everyone was panicked, and everyone was wondering how our health systems that are already very weak will face that crisis if it was as bad as in the developing countries. And so we formed a big team and we supported 6 countries in West Africa. We did we basically assessed the current incident management system, and we saw what were the weakness, and we advised on how to strengthen that. And I think next we had a follow-up action. We were able to connect with funders to mobilize funding and start some initiatives as a follow-up, such as a regional platform where they could come together and collaborate on issues related, for example, to cross-border people who are infected by the disease, how to manage that, etc. So I think it was really interesting for me to see that, and also to be weak sometimes in terms of personnel and in terms of financial and material resources.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing very quickly? I see Mega's question here. Like, I don't know about the courses and such. I guess that's Michel. Michel can help answer that. But networking, yes. I mean, I found my first job in Sweden in the impact field by literally having one coffee after another, like leaving every meeting with a recommendation to meet with somebody else. That basically helped me land on my first impact job. So just talk to people, try to understand what's what, what are the interesting organizations, and try to get a connection for the next time before you exit the first conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Indira.
So for me, I mean, it's difficult because I think the last year for me, one of the, of course, it's not necessarily a project that you guys will all relate to, but we opened an office in Angola, and building the team from 2 to 12 was already a great achievement for us. And in that process, we managed to grow our pipeline of investments from 0 to more than 700 million. Of course, it doesn't mean that, this is necessarily going to happen. It's not set in stone, but hopefully once these 700 million or more are invested, the impact that this will have in the lives of people day to day in Angola is going to be huge. And so that, to me, brings me a lot of I'm honored to be part of that. At the same time, a specific project that I truly enjoyed, and I hope I don't go overboard here, but if anybody knows anything about Angola, Angola is an oil country, which has been our curse for the longest time, because despite the agriculture potential, despite the potential in everything, we have done nothing other than oil. And today, because the oil prices are down, which has had a huge impact, so I'm not saying this is great, but it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs in the country to look at other things. And so what we are seeing is, companies that used to be importers of goods and services, especially in the agribusiness, are today, because they no longer have that capacity to just import, they're today industrializing in the country. And when you industrialize, that means at least part of the process you're not just exporting your unfinished goods, and importing finished goods, but you're actually bringing value to what you have in the country. But of course, when you're talking about a pasta factory might be doing the pasta in Angola, but still has to import the wheat or the maize, because we no longer have that production in the country. And so we've been working with one of the advisory projects that we have been putting in place in the last year, working with one of our most important clients, is whereas for the time being, this client will have to import some raw material to transform in the country, we are looking with them to mobilize clusters of small producers, to train them, to prepare them, so that, in the next 5, 10, 15, whatever it needs to be years, they will be able to substitute those imports with local production. And at the same time, that means providing jobs, to a lot of people, creating small entrepreneurs that eventually will grow, and so on. So for me, that's the beauty of this job, is it's not necessarily, you don't see the finished goods today. It's we're patient investors, but at least that you've done something as part of the process, and I think that at least is how I feel I give back.
Thank you. I'm very sad to say that we actually reached our time. We're gonna have to finish. So the next event, for sure, let's schedule like at least 2 hours, because certainly there will be a lot more to talk about. Thanks a lot, everyone, for attending. Feel free to reach out to all of us, on LinkedIn. You're gonna find, we have all like uncommon names. So if you look for us on LinkedIn, you're gonna find us. And thanks a lot again. We keep in touch. Bye.
For having us. Have a great one.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks for having us.
Bye.
And do choose IESE.
Exactly.
Great school.
Thank you, Indira. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.